Better late than never. The codes are unlocked, and we are rocking and ready to go right here on SportsbookReview.com's The Closing Line, a condensed version. We lost 10 minutes. We are going to let it rip over the next 45 minutes here, Kyle. Let's have some fun. Let's talk some NFL. We're here. Are you guys here?
Yeah, really appreciate you guys hanging out, waiting for us. Had a couple little difficulties. I won't ramble too long. Cheers to you all. Let's talk some football. Week 10, baby.
No, we're going to have a good time here going over a couple things because the weather has impacted a lot of these games out here, as well as who's in, who's out. So we're ready to rock and roll, kick it off, and let's not wait any longer and hit it. 253, 254, Washington and Detroit. The Washington football team / Redskins come to town with Alex Smith making his first. Look, he's appeared in a couple games this year, but now making his first start after that devastating leg injury, going up against Matthew Stafford, who we weren't sure was going to make it to the starting line, but cleared of concussion protocol. He is active and ready. Opening line on the total, 46, still sitting in that 46 range, but a big market movement here from the Detroit Lions over to the Washington football team. As high as 5s early in the week. We're now seeing 2.5 points across the board. And I got to tell you right now, Kyle, I agree with the line movement, and I think the wrong team is favored here.
Yeah, me too. I like Washington. I've liked them all week. Looks like Hawkinson is going to play for Detroit. He popped up on the injury list earlier in the week with that toe issue. No Kenny Golladay. I just think that Detroit defense is beatable. I think the way Alex Smith's going to play around the running backs and the big plays to Terry McLaurin and a better defense. The Washington defense is sneaky good. I like Washington in this spot. I took the points earlier in the week. I've stayed with it. It stayed around this 3.5 as it's went on and off the board. I like Washington this week.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of confused. When I saw it pop up at that 4.5 and 5s, when there's only maybe a book or two that had lines out at SPRodds.com, and I knew that line would come down, and I'm not surprised by it because when I line the teams up, if you ask me who's the better defense, it's Washington. When you ask me on offense, if you take out Kenny Golladay and a banged-up T.J. Hawkinson, I might lean towards Washington in this spot. When you're talking about one team that looks like it's dead in the water being Detroit versus a team with a new head coach, Ron Rivera, still playing hard week to week to week, I'm still surprised. And, we'll give picks and plays out at the end of the show. And this is going to be one that we really, at least I focus on, because I do believe the Washington football team Redskins are the better football team playing in Detroit. And the one thing we can count on with this game, Kyle, we're not worried about any weather conditions here. Yeah,
it's a nice game in the Dome. I actually like the Washington team total this week as well. I was all over that earlier in the week, and I'm going to stick with that. I believe I got it at 20.5, and I think they get well into the 20s. I think they win this game. Now I might be on Monday, tomorrow's show, going, why in the hell did I put money on Alex Smith when, I have a big-time love-hate relationship with Alex Smith. But I just like Washington. I like their defense more. I think it's going to be a struggle for Detroit to move the football. So sign me up for that. Those Washington Schneiders to get it done. I don't even mind money line. I think they win this game outright.
Yeah, Dinkin and Duncan down the field looks like that's probably what's going to be taking place here as you look, because Alex Smith, we know, likes to target running backs, the intermediate passing game. And, Matthew Stafford out Kenny Golladay, he was Dinkin and Duncan a lot for the past couple weeks here. So we'll see it plays out. The over-under in this one, I think it's about right at 46. It doesn't seem like a track meet type of ball club. But again, I still think Washington, to me, is the overall better football team. Welcome into the chat box. 73,700 people have hit that subscribe button. All those people in the chat box here waiting us out through the technical difficulties over the first 9 minutes. Now we're rocking and rolling and ready to go. Let's turn it on. Game number 2. This is probably the most windy conditions of the week, Kyle. And a couple weeks back, we saw just about a carbon copy. The Las Vegas Raiders came to town to play the Cleveland Browns. 16-6 final. Heavy winds as high as gust 50 miles an hour. We might see that today as well. 6 out of every 10 tickets, though, still coming in on Cleveland. And how about this? Opens up at 2.5. Now 4.5s across the board in this windy conditions. And I got to say, I like Cleveland. I think they're the better ball club overall. But when you have this many windy conditions here, it sort of evens it out. And I know people, hey, we're just going to lean on Chubb and Kareem Hunt, and Houston can't stop the run. We know it helps a team, Kyle, that can't stop the run. Playing everybody in the box because passing deep might be a real problem in this game. And again, you're still without your top deep threat, Odell Beckham, who's obviously on IR for the year. Jarvis Landry should have a decent game. But are we trusting now the Cleveland Browns seeing this line move up to 4.5 now in these windy conditions when just a few weeks back, who would have thought the Raiders would come into town and push around Cleveland, win by double digits? I'm not buying it. I'm taking the points here with the Texans.
Yeah, if I'm picking a side, I would pick the Texans as well. Now, Cleveland has a slightly better defense, and they do have a better running game, obviously getting Chubb back. No David Johnson for Houston, so now it's the Duke Johnson show. Remember, that was that horrific trade made by Bill O'Brien a couple of years back. Good old Bob. For me, I got the under 49.5 early in the week, and I absolutely love that. So I got some value. Last week, I didn't get a lot of value. So this week, I got some value. Hard to trust either side in these conditions. Obviously, the better quarterback, the better wide receivers, healthier wide receivers with Houston. How much is that going to impact the game with high winds? I mean, they're talking gusts upwards of 50 miles an hour. We saw that 16-6 game a couple weeks back. So for me, I just took the under. Now you're at 45, 45.5. That gets a little dicier. You get scared, a couple long runs or a strip sack fumble. Baker Mayfield looks like crap. Anytime things are difficult, Baker Mayfield looks like crap. Let's just call it what it is. Hard for me to trust a side. If I was picking a side, I'd pick Houston, but I like the under. The 45.5 makes me more nervous, but you're still probably going to get, we're talking, I wouldn't shock me if if the total in this game was in the 30 somewhere. So I still like the under. Hard to trust a side, but if I'm picking one, give me the Texans.
Yeah, no, it is hard because, again, you're right. It's hard to back that Houston defense, but we're not talking about playing down in Houston where it's perfect conditions. You can do whatever you want. And I do agree. Right. The offensive line now, Cleveland, getting healthier this week, getting a couple key components back, and also Nick Chubb at running back. That should be an active offense. But if you're talking about just running the ball and the clock's ticking down and you have a playmaker still. Deshaun Watson can make as many plays with his arm as he can with his foot. Got some fleet wide receivers. And again, we're talking about that deep passing game probably going to be a little bit inhibited there with the wind, but he can still make some plays. I think they can keep it close in this instant. And I'm going to take the 4.5. That's a big line jump, moving 2.5 points throughout the week, even with windy conditions. Usually, Kyle, what do we say? Underdog and windy conditions and rainy conditions, it comes down. This is going complete opposite. I'm interested to see how Chubb does. Had that knee brace on Wednesday in practice, took it off Thursday. If they're both rocking and rolling, ready to go, Cleveland should be a buy on team moving forward. But I just want to see it happen. And again, just a couple weeks ago, as we talked about, same windy weather conditions, Cleveland was abominable in that game. They were horrendous. And we're talking about they weren't playing the Steelers that game, right? They were playing the Raiders defense, equally as bad as the Texans. Let's see how it plays out here. Let's keep moving. Another windy environment game, cold weather. Those Florida boys coming up to Green Bay, going to get a touch of some, maybe, a little bit of rain, a little bit of sleet, a little bit of flurry conditions here. Wind's going to be blowing. That Shake Luton's going to go up, make his second career start, going up against Aaron Rodgers. Last time we saw Jacksonville, hey, rookie was making some mistakes, but looked decent against Houston. But taking a look at Green Bay, completely dismantled the San Francisco 49ers. What are we going to see this week? Well, we're seeing some high lines. Opened up at 14, was 14s just a few moments ago, but now 13.5s across the board. 53.5 is an over-under, dips down to 47. The problem I have with this game, nice day conditions up there in Green Bay. I'm taking the over because I'm going to think Aaron Rodgers hanging 35 on that Jacksonville defense, but also Jake Luton, the young kid, would be able to sling it around the yard. I think this is one of those games where, again, we talked about it Tuesday and Thursday. You have the blueprint in the game. You just saw it from Minnesota. Now, you don't have Dalvin Cook, obviously, and you don't have two legitimate, dominant wide receivers capable that the Minnesota Vikings have. But the blueprint is there to slow this game down, keep it on the ground. We know the Green Bay Packers are very soft on their front seven. You can run the football. Maybe they keep it on the ground in anticipation of keeping it close. I can't lay 14 in bad wins here, Kyle. I just can't do it.
No, just take the under in this game, right? How much offense is Jacksonville going to have? Now, they do have some help. Jair Alexander is going to miss this game, so that does make things easier, obviously, for their number one target, DJ Chark. However, we're talking about snow and wind, high winds. It is a nasty weather day out there in Green Bay, and so how effective will that Jacksonville passing game be? Packers struggle against the run. Jacksonville struggles against the run. I like both James Robinson and Aaron Jones for DFS purposes. Fantasy in your fantasy leagues, they should be in store for big games. But I just don't know if that constitutes to 47 points. So I took the under in this game. I actually got this one earlier in the week too at 51, and I took the under then. This was Wednesday, I think. So I like the under in this game. Not picking a side. I don't like double digit spreads, and like you said, in nasty weather conditions, too many things can happen there. I'll take if I was picking a side, I would obviously take Green Bay. Jacksonville is an absolute dumpster fire, but for me, the bet is taking the under in this game and just enjoying the bad weather in Lambeau. It's a tradition. Come on.
No, it absolutely, exactly. You can jump into the stands, do that the Packer leap, so you don't have to have any issues there with fans. You can do it as the away team. We see Minnesota do that quite a few times. So the Lambeau leap, as we like to call it. But in the last two games, here's an interesting part because Houston, Cleveland, Kyle, opens up at 54. We now see 45.5 across the board. That is a massive drop. Then you see also Jacksonville and Green Bay. The 53.5 turns into 47. Yep. This is one of the things with the advent of live wagering that you can really take advantage of. If you watch the game over like the first maybe half of a quarter and you say, you know what, these guys are throwing it around. The wind doesn't look all that bad, because this is just going on a preconceived notion that, oh my God, 50-mile-an-hour winds, which may gust once or twice a game, but you also might have a quarter and a half where it's like, hey, man, the flag is barely even whipping up there. You never know what's going to happen. So just keep that in mind, where you might get that bonus drop of 8 to 8.5 points that we see in that total in the Houston-Cleveland game. And maybe you see that same type of thing on Green Bay. Maybe not, but obviously with live wagering, you can always take a look at that. 259, 260 up in the Meadowlands. The Philadelphia Eagles, the first place Philadelphia Eagles, take on the New York Football Giants. Wentz and Daniel Jones going to tee it up 50-50. Ticket split here at SBRodds.com. If we take a look across the board, we saw 3.5s primarily where it opened up. We saw it dip back to 3s and heavy juice for the Eagles. I'm like, you know what? I even have it on my board here as one of the team totals I was looking at. Eagles 23.5, 23 in that range, has now risen to that 24.5, 25 range. But we actually had a buyback over the past half hour. This line was as high as 5 across the board. Now we're seeing 4.5s across the board. And even one of the sharper books out of Costa Rica here, Chris, now showing a -4 as a favorite for the Eagles. My stance hasn't changed all week. I do think the Eagles win this football game. And I think they win the football game. Obviously, they're probably going to cover since it's only 4. But I know the Giants, who are a little devoid of talent, the Eagles are the better football team, but they're going to play hard all the way through. And it wasn't long ago, and I'll keep saying it, even though a lot of Eagles were missing the game last time, this team was down 10 points to the New York Giants late in that football game. So it's not a mirage that the Giants can't hang around or hold on with the Philadelphia Eagles. I do think the Eagles win, but I'm not confident enough to lay that 4.5 to 5, which means the Eagles will win by 7. Do I think they can win by 7? Absolutely, I do. But I've seen it with my own eyes. I don't want to be angry and Carson Wentz turns it over first to 2 times in the first half, and it's 13-7 Giants at the half. I'm like, here we go again. Need another miracle out of Wentz in the fourth quarter. I don't want to be in that position, but I do think the Eagles win. I do think they cover, but not enough to lay the wood on it. But I do think that 45 range, right on the cusp, because we saw that line open up 41, 42 early in the week. It's risen to 45. I think both of these teams get into the 20s. Therefore, I'm leaning towards that over as well.
Yeah, I agree with the over. And I got the Eagles at 3.5 earlier in the week, and I feel pretty good about it. They're getting healthy finally at the skill positions. Miles Sanders back. Dallas Goedert another week healthy. Alshon Jeffrey's going to actually play today. How much, we'll have to see. Jalen Reagor's there. So they're finally getting their weapons. And I just think that front 7 causes Daniel Jones too many problems. No Devontae Freeman, so now they're relying on Wayne Gallman and Dion Lewis. Golden Tate is going to play today, coming off of the practice squad.
Dante Pettis, I think, is activated. Your boy.
No, they ruled him out. They ruled him in.
Oh, they did?
He's always out. Dante Pettis, what a piece of just good Lord. Dante Pettis, 2nd-round pick. What a waste of a draft pick. And they were all excited to get Dante Pettis. Joe Judge and the Giants, have fun with that. And don't you dare scream that you want the football. How dare you be a wide receiver and want the football, or you'll head straight to the practice squad. I'm not big on the Giants. I just think that front 7 for the Eagles, both these quarterbacks turn the football over. We've seen that. But the front 7 for Philly, much, much better than the front 7 for the Giants. I like the Eagles. I actually think they win this game by a touchdown or more. I don't mind the 4.5, 5, certainly more nervous about it. I got them at 3.5 earlier in the week, and I feel pretty good about it.
Yeah, Eagles going. JJ Arcega-Whiteside, who is going to be a healthy scratch here. It's kind of interesting. You were normally looking for as many healthy bodies as you can get on the offensive side of the football, specifically wide receiver for the Eagles. Now they have a plethora out here. We'll see how it plays into it, but maybe you need that week or two to gel. We'll see what happens in these instances, but I do think the Eagles win this football game just a little bit. I'm not going to be surprised 23-20 at the end of this ball game, something in that range there. So I did lay off that, and I also laid off the Eagles team. It's one of the first games I circled this week on my big board was Eagles team total. For some reason, I keep backing down. They should be able to get that number because we're not looking at terrible conditions in mid-November up in the Meadowlands. 50 degrees, 10, 15-mile-an-hour winds. I mean, that's exactly what you would hope for if you were playing in November in the Meadowlands. So we'll see what takes place there with the Philadelphia Eagles. One of the more talked about games this week, 261, 262, Tom Brady, Teddy Bridgewater, Teddy undercover Bridgewater, because he always covers, specifically, obviously, when he's getting points. I want to say on Twitter, I saw it's social media. 21-4 is an under something absolutely astronomical plays right into this game. Opens up at 6. We saw a buyback of 5.5 to 5. Now back to 6s across the board. Over under staying in that range. Opened up at 48. We saw 50s most of the week. Now we're seeing 49s, 49.5s. I do think we get some points in this game. And I got to tell you, I missed out on a quick opportunity flashing on a couple of sports books here in New Jersey. 26.5 was a team total for maybe about 10 minutes on Tampa Bay. I think they can get that 27, 28, 30-point range. I really do, because you know me, Kyle, I like to buy low. Everybody says, oh, my God, did you see them last week? They scored 3 points. Tom Brady stinks. Completely different circumstances this week. You're going to have a much more controlled environment. You're not going to have the windy conditions that you saw in Tampa, the rain. It's going to be decent outdoors. It's on the road, yes, but still in 60-degree weather. And you have a team that was angry from last week. They're going to use the ground game this weekend, look for Fournette and Ronald Jones to get off, which opens up the play action passes deep, which is what Tom Brady does really well. I do think the Bucs win this football game, but Carolina is sneaky. I just missed out on that team total I wanted, because I do think they get into the mid to high 20s, but it's all about value. There is a monster difference from 27 points to 26.5 when you're factoring in only needing 3 touchdowns and 2 field goals to cash your ticket, as basically 4 full touchdowns to actually cash that ticket. And so I just missed on that, but I can't fault Tampa Bay in this spot. I like Tampa Bay angry, motivated, and ready to go. I think they could pull it out by a touchdown here.
Absolutely. And you mentioned that team total too. A little bit of weather issues in this game. Now it says it'll fade later into the game, but you could have a couple missed extra points. It's not like, Sly's a good kicker for Carolina, but Ryan Suckup, we've seen it for Tampa Bay. Not very good. I like Tampa Bay. Now we know they had those traveling issues yesterday. I guess they got in pretty late last night. There was problems with their plane, so they got in at around midnight, and everyone's, I'm jumping on Carolina now. I don't think you're crazy to jump on Carolina. Carolina has been a great cover for me all year long, including last week. I love Carolina. I just think Tampa Bay, we talk about this all the time, and you just mentioned it, when everyone's down on a team and up on another team. So Carolina looks great against Kansas City. Tampa Bay looks absolutely horrific against New Orleans. So everyone's, jumping on the Carolina bandwagon. I think Tampa Bay comes out motivated today. Carolina struggles against the run. Tampa Bay is one of the best, if not the best, rushing defenses in the NFL. No Christian McCaffrey, some wind issues, not a super strong arm in Teddy Bridgewater there. I think Tampa Bay comes out on fire. I think that defense absolutely smothers the Carolina offense. Mike Davis, very, very cheap on DraftKings on the main for you DFS guys. In the main, he's like 4K in the main slate. When you look at the early only, he jumps up 2,700. But I just think Tampa Bay's too motivated. I got him at 5, so I got like a point and a half. I took the -5 on Tampa Bay. I think they win this game by more than a touchdown. Highly motivated. Everyone's down on them. I'll go the other side. Give me Tampa Bay.
Yeah, I do, and it's a very square play, as we would like to say, line as it moved. And Teddy Bridgewater has done extremely well, and he's got some good wide receivers. And a lot of people will look, and rightfully so, last week, hey, man, they just went on the road and hung with Kansas City. Why can't they do it to Tampa Bay? Well, we'll see if it happens there, but there's a reason why that line is 6, and it's not a pick 'em in that ball game, because obviously I believe Tampa Bay is the better overall team. And outside of, I guess, really giving them the business last week was the New Orleans Saints. That's a tough team to dominate, because they have a really good front seven. They get a pass rush after Teddy Bridgewater, and there's a lot left to be desired on that Carolina Panthers defense. And you finally think some of these weapons can get back. Why did Chris Godwin's back last week? Well, if you saw him catching passes last week, it takes a while to acclimate when you're a wide receiver with a busted finger. And you saw him try to overcompensate. Didn't have any, injury designation all week, which leads me to believe his finger's feeling a lot better. You got 3 really good wide receivers, 2 good running backs, and a decent offensive line. I think Tom Brady's angry in this one and certainly puts up some points. We'll see what happens there. That's all the 1 o'clock games for today. How great is that? Only 5 1 o'clock games. We're going to have even more games at 4 o'clock. So let's get after that now. 265, 266. I agree with the line movement in this game. Denver and the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, I was waiting on, if you're taking a look at team totals out there, 22.5, 23, 23.5 in that range for the for the Denver Broncos. Here's the issue I have with this game, because I was waiting on an injury, which sometimes it comes down to a key contributor, whether or not I believe there's perceived value. So having said that, do I think the Denver Broncos can score and possibly win this game? I do think that. But here's the issue we have now. You have a right tackle for the Denver Broncos, which a shaky offensive line already. He's going to get his first career start in the NFL. They're down to roughly their fourth string right tackle. You say, well, they're going up against the Raiders. They're not that good. I understand that. But if anybody has watched Drew Lock, you can't rely on the kid being a bonehead for 3 quarters and playing magic football in the fourth quarters each and every week. I got lucky last week. 3 points at the half. I had a team total of over 21 going up against the Atlanta Falcons. They needed 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter to hit that total. You can't factor that in each and every week. And the one knock that I do have on Drew Lock when you watch him play, very talented, athletic, and electric arm. But as many young quarterbacks that have been taught, he played SEC football at Missouri, so he didn't have the best offensive line. He thinks he can make the play out of the pocket. So instead of standing in the pocket and delivering, when you break down the pocket, you roll out when you maybe had an extra second or two to make that read in the pocket. That's where I get nervous. And now you're talking about even less depth on your offensive line, specifically from a tackle position. I can sort of see that again. I hope I'm wrong. 7 points at the half, 6 points at the half. You need a miracle to pull it out in the second half. I don't want to get involved in that. I do think they're a live dog today. If the young kid at right tackle plays well, they have some components that can move the football against the Raiders. But having seen that, that was a slight issue for me because if DeMar Dotson is playing at the right tackle position, I'm much more confident Drew Lock's going to have a clean pocket in this one.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, how many comebacks can you have? But, I'm 50-50 on this game. Do I think Vegas is a slightly better team? I do. I like that Bryce Callahan's going to give it a go. That's certainly going to help them out there with Ruggs and Aguilar, etc. So when I'm 50-50 on a game like this, where I think it's a close divisional game, both teams, sort of middle of the pack, I do think Vegas is slightly better, but I'm just taking the points in this one. Denver has to know you can't start this slow every week, and it's a gift when you're behind to Atlanta, right? If you're trailing Atlanta by 20 or more points, you have a legitimate shot to win because, it's the Atlanta Falcons. And thank you to all you over 500 people in here watching.
Yeah,
thank
awesome.
you all. It's really awesome, especially, we have
waited with us.
Yeah, you guys waited with us. Super, super cool. So thank you to all you. But this game is so close to me. I've had a tough time with this game all week. I'm just going to take the points. It won't shock me either way. I agree with you. I think Denver is a live dog, one of the liver dogs on the slate. We just have to see, can they start faster this time? You just cannot get behind in all these games like this. If they can keep Drew Lock standing, Jerry Jeudy's also going to play. He's been battling that shoulder issue all week. He's going to play. Bryce Callahan, Noah Fant is going to play. He's had that ankle injury all year long. I think Denver covers here. This is one game, I don't ever like to predict 1 or 2 point games, but this game really kind of feels like that, where it's going to come right down to the wire, last possession, 2 evenly matched teams. Raiders slightly better. Do I want to give them points? Probably not. I'm going to take Denver here reluctantly. It's a game I didn't bet on. I stayed away with my personal money, but I'd have to pick the Denver Broncos.
And I would agree. And also when you take a look at this game with the Denver Broncos, what do you like about it? Last week, we talked about some interesting line moves and, guys that are in and out. The Denver Broncos have a completely different look as a defense when A.J. Boye and Bryce Callahan are starting. They're both anticipated to start, which they both missed last week. So it allowed Drew Lock to play from behind. How many games have we seen where Drew Lock plays well when they're down 21 points? That can't happen on a game-to-game basis because when you're banking, hey, and I like him. He's an electric quarterback. But sooner or later, maybe they play from the front end and say, hey, we don't need your big fourth quarter, your big third quarter. Let's just keep us in the ballgame. We're going to play really good defense against the Raiders. We'll keep it close and see what happens. Again, the only reason why you're able to cash a team total last week with Denver is because they were getting blown out by a bad football team. We'll see if it happens today. I do think, again, I preface this, I think the line movement is right. Denver about 3, getting 3 seems right to me, but I was just so close to firing on Denver. If we'd had a full offensive line, I would have been all over that one there, but I think do think they play well. High-scoring game that we're anticipating here, Kyle, 267, 268, Buffalo and Arizona, and you're getting all the ingredients that you want. Not worried about any weather conditions. Both defenses, specifically in the secondary, banged up. 2 athletic quarterbacks with rockets. What is not more to like? Well, it would be nice if the over-under, Kyle, was 45 and not 55 and a half or 56 points in this one. And the line has moved from -1 at Pinnacle to open the week, primarily to 3 across the board. And I got to tell you, I agree with that line movement here. I really do. And it's one of those things where I'm actually, if you're taking Arizona, you're glad they lost last week to the Miami Dolphins because you get that public perception. Oh, they just lost to the Dolphins. How are they going to now beat the Buffalo Bills, who just beat the Seattle Seahawks? If you know the NFL, it's a week-to-week league, man. And if you're going to play a team at home and then fly out into a pissed-off team in Arizona in the desert, the one thing I think Buffalo gives a decent shot here is that front four can get pressure on Kyler Murray. And it's hard to get pressure on Kyler Murray. You saw it last week, interrupted some of the throwing lanes and certainly got some sacks and turnovers out of Russell Wilson. I just think Arizona is in a good spot this week, but the line is gone that you wanted. The 1.5, Kyle, the 2s, the 2.5s, just to win by 3 points is no longer off the board. It's ludicrous to take a total that opened up at 52 and now sits at 55.5. Why can't both teams get in the 30s here?
No, they can. I actually took the over, and I'm nervous about it because you need everything to go right. You're not wrong, but these two offenses should have no problem moving the football. You saw for Buffalo, Josh Norman is now going to be out. Does that really help Arizona? He hasn't been that good anyways, but now we're talking, Levi Wallace and, Toronto. Yep. So Arizona, this is my favorite prop play of the week. I took Christian Kirk over that 51.5 receiving total. When you look over there, you've got Christian Kirk against, subpar corners, and you're going to see a lot of Tre'Davious White on DeAndre Hopkins. Both defenses are absolutely vulnerable in the secondary. Drake Kirkpatrick is going to play for Arizona. Trust me, that's good for John Brown fans and John Brown players sitting there at 5,400, 5,300 on DraftKings. He is absolutely terrible. Then you're going to have Patrick Peterson shadowing Stephon Diggs. So John Brown, Christian Kirk, I like some of these secondary options in the offense this week. It looks like Kenyon Drake's going to give it a go or try to give it a go right up until kickoff, so they'll have both running backs. But I like points in this game. I will be really surprised if this game is not a high-scoring game. Now, I've been surprised before, many times before. I've walked into my own house and been surprised before. This was in the years past. That's why I'm a bachelor now. However, that's why you drink on Sunday mornings, baby. No, that was the best thing that ever happened to me. But no, I think there's a lot of points in this game. I liked it a lot more at 1.5. Like you said, 1.5. I took Arizona. But if I'm picking a side, I would pick Buffalo just because I think they're too good to not take the points. Them and Arizona pretty equal. But for me, I took the over. It's going to be a lot of fun to watch. A little bit nervous about it, but screw it. Scared money doesn't make money. Let's have some fun.
No, you're right. And you bring up a good point here because when you take a look at it's not so much the injuries that already happened because you go into an NFL game where you're expecting injuries, right? If you come in already depleted, we've already seen Tre'Davious White's back flare up. Let's just say if midway through the first quarter, he goes down with an ankle injury, a concussion. Now you're looking at code red in that secondary, and it's on and popping. So you like the teams to come in healthy because through attrition during the game, you're going to lose a guy or two. But when you come in redlining in that back end, with both of these teams might be, 1 or 2 injuries, now you're throwing safeties to try to play cornerback on DeAndre Hopkins. Good luck overall with that. But I do think there is going to be points in this game. I do think Arizona wins this game. Obviously, we can only talk about lines that are here currently today. We can't say, hey, Kyle, locked it in a Wednesday, 1.5. Good luck, guys, with that because it doesn't help anybody in the chat box to do that. I do think Arizona picks up the victory, and I will be square in this game and feel if both of these teams can get into the high 20s, they're playing to that number. More shocking, Kyle, as we like to do, 24-17 or 34-27 in this game.
Right. 24-17 would be an absolute shocker and devastating to all of my DFS hopes today. So that better not bleed. I swear to God, if I turn on a red zone in the afternoon after the Masters and all I'm seeing is, San Francisco, New Orleans, as much as I like to watch my 49ers, I'm going to be pretty pissed off. I expect to see this game on the screen quite a bit. Lots of points, like the over. I'll take Buffalo. You'll take Arizona. We'll split the two sides here, but I like the over and the points, and let's get it done. Let's go.
There you go. If Arizona wins, I will tweet that I'm a better man than you. If Arizona loses, it will never be found on Twitter or anything. So I do like this bet. We will take that there. Let's keep going. 4:05, another 4 o'clock game. 277, 278. The Chargers going east to play the Miami Dolphins. And finally, we're getting a little bit of line movement back to where it opened up at 2.5 because the 1.5s and the 1s were prevalent all week long. And I'm scratching my head and I'm saying, Kyle, one team just can't get out of its own way and win, and that's the Chargers. And then you have the Dolphins on a win streak that shows everything about if we are going to be in a close, hard-fought game, we're going to win this football game, and we have a legitimate chance at the playoffs. And I'm saying, how can this go along all week? So I always thought one of the sharper moves this week was the Chargers. I still think that is the case. But also when you're out here COVID line shopping, as I like to talk about it, you saw early in the week when Ian Rappaport said, well, broke in, Kyle Van Noy, Christian Williams, they are at Wilkins. They are out for this game, and maybe a couple more people. Oh, look at this. He's going to be out. A day later, we see like, oh, yeah, still look. And then out of nowhere, hey, by the way, Van Noy's going to play. No big deal. That is a huge component to the Dolphins defense that they're going to get back in play that you didn't anticipate to have. And also earlier in the week, what was the prognosis on Tuesday, Kyle? I'm talking to you. Say, here's what I like about the Chargers defense. We're going to get Joey Bosa on one side, and on the other side, we're going to get We're going to get Ingram. So we are going to just blast this pocket, move it all around, and the young kid might struggle. And then out of nowhere, midweek, like, hey, Bosa took off last week. He said he's practicing. He's going to take this week off again. So it completely blew exactly what I like to look at overall in this game. But having said that, Herbert is just a 300-yard machine out here. He's going up against two legitimate cornerbacks, but that offense does move. I have a tendency to believe, though, that this game stays under the 49. I think it'll be more of a defensive effort than offensive effort, if that makes sense. But I really did want to take the Chargers early in the week, and just a simple injury like Joey Bosa being down really hurt me.
Yeah, and it's hard to trust the Chargers, right? Like, especially if it's a close game. They cannot seem to win these close games no matter what Herbert does. I mean, that was a beautiful ball last week, right into the arms of a 6'8" tight end out of the XFL, Donald Parham. Some of you might remember if you were watching the XFL. And they just can't seem to get out of their own way. And then every week we seem to be like, okay, Miami can't get it done this week. What do? They blow out the 49ers at home. Okay, they can't get it done this week. They embarrass the Rams in Miami. Okay, there's no way they can outduel Kyler Murray this week. What do? They outduel Kyler Murray. So I think I'm done doubting this Dolphins team. I think they're better coached. They have a better defense. That Chargers defense has been an absolute disappointment this year. I know they've been banged up. They got rid of Desmond King. I like Justin Herbert a lot. I think he's awesome. Throws a beautiful deep ball. He is absolutely one of the better young quarterbacks in the league. It's going to be a ton of fun to watch these two for a long time. But right now, I know it's the square play at home, getting 1.5, 2 points. I totally understand it. But I just can't, until I see the Chargers actually get something done and win a close game, I can't trust them. Justin Jackson also out for the Chargers. So you're going to see, Kalen Ballage, Troy Maine Pope's going to try to give it a go, and Josh Kelly. Not a lot of world beaters there. They will have the advantage in the slot against Nick Needham. So Keenan Allen should have a nice matchup there in the slot. But on the perimeter, Xavier Howard and Byron Jones, very, very good. I just think Miami knows how to win these games. They're winning these games. Until I see it out of the Chargers, I can't take them. So I got to take the Dolphins.
Yeah, and I can't fault you for that. I really can't, because again, a lot of my cap was I'm going to get organic 4-man pressure with Bosa and Melvin Ingram on both sides with a rookie quarterback. That's exactly what they don't like. Specifically, a shorter rookie quarterback that would have to stand in the pocket and make throws that maybe he would like to roll out and get behind. But that Bosa theory completely blew up once. I was actually surprised to see him downgraded to out, but it is what it is. I still think that line stays under the 49 in that game. Going out to Pittsburgh, 425, 251, 252. Joe Burrow coming to town, and that is a Joe Burrow team that is rested and ready, but not getting all that healthy on defense, missing a couple components there in the secondary, already off a defense that is pretty porous. Ben Roethlisberger doesn't practice all week, activated Saturday, goes through the walkthrough, looks good to go. Knees aren't an issue. When I look at the Pittsburgh Steelers offense in this game, Kyle, this is probably as healthy as they've been all year. All three wide receivers getting full practices in, as well as the offensive line. Also the tight end, Eric Ebron, is healthy. Connor is healthy. And Big Ben, as they said all week, didn't really have any struggles with the knee, and it might have been refreshing that he was able to take 4 to 5 days off, being an old grizzled veteran. But as you take a look at the line, opened up at 46. Now we're seeing 45.5 across the board. Some windy conditions to start. If this game was 1 o'clock, you'd have a lot more issues to deal with instead of being 425. The rain's going to move out. The winds will die down later in the evening. But what it comes down to is, if you think there's going to be points in this game, what are we thinking, Kyle? Joe Burrow's going to have to throw for between 40 and 50 times, and I think he will. No Joe Mixon out there to sort of say, hey, let's keep the dogs at bay over here on that Pittsburgh defense and get a running game cranked up. They're not going to have that. They're already a little salty on that front offensive line as is, going against the most elite, dominant front seven pass rush in the NFL. Last time we saw a game where they were bullied up front, that was versus the Baltimore Ravens. They put up 3 points. I do think they score more in this game, but I know a lot of people buying in the 7.5s, the 8.5s, the 9.5s, which now have turned into primarily 6.5s across the board. I know it's the chic thing to do, go with Cincinnati, but I think the Steelers win this game by a touchdown. I do.
Oh, I'm taking the Bengals, and I know
you
the
go.
weather. The weather is a concern, and they're not great at stopping the run. But look, Joe Burrow is going to throw the ball, no matter. I know the wind is up there. This is, your favorite weatherman Kevin Roth has upped the wind conditions in this game. We always know he is super accurate there over at RotoGrinder. But they're saying, some 30-mile-an-hour gusts. You think, oh God, Cincinnati's going to have to try to run the ball against one of the best rushing defenses in the NFL. That's not going to happen. They'll just throw. They throw quick passes anyways. You're going to see a bunch of Boyd, no Mike Hilton in the slot. So it's, I believe, Cam Sutton replacing him in the slot. Both Sutton and Steven Nelson have been dreadful in their respective sides of the defense. So you can actually throw the ball against Pittsburgh, allowing the 9th most fantasy points in the league to opposing wide receivers. I think, look, Joe Burrow is a cover monster. I am betting anytime I'm getting, I know we just said it doesn't really help. I got it at 7.5 earlier in the week. I think the Bengals cover. Do I think Pittsburgh wins? Probably. Do I think you're crazy to think Cincinnati wins? Not really. Ben Roethlisberger is going to play. We had all that COVID stuff throughout the week. I just think the Bengals cover. I think they do enough in the passing game, short passing to Giovanni Bernard without Joe Mixon, that they can cover here. I like the team total for the Bengals, 19.5 I'm looking at right here. I think they do get into the 20s. I think both teams get into the 20s. I don't mind that 45.5 total, even with the weather. I like the Bengals to cover, but I don't think you're crazy for taking the Steelers. Obviously, the Steelers have been money for me all year long, obviously.
Yeah, how about balmy 60 degrees out there in Pittsburgh? It'd be one thing if you had that, I guess Green Bay Packers where it's the windy conditions, raining, and also you throw in 35 degrees. We'll see how that plays out. But also, I say this each and every week when we're talking about weather conditions. Obviously, it can change. There can be showers pop up. We get that. But if you can just use your own visual, right? You go to a high school field and you stand in the middle of it. There's nothing blocking it. It's like a plain out there, like the Iowa plains, completely flat. You feel the wind. When you go into an NFL stadium, the wind really whips and turns it around on like plays like punting and field goals when the ball gets extremely high in the air. Also keep in mind when they talk about these wind gusts, have you ever seen the weather needle in an NFL stadium at the 50-yard line on the ground? No. You see it at the top of the stadium, blowing with the flags like, holy cow, look at the flags at the top of the stadium. Folks, that's not the weather that's down on the field played, from 0 to 15 to 20 feet upwards where the NFL games are played. Just keep that in mind. Yes, wind hurts. You don't want to see it over 30 or 40, 50 miles an hour, but keep in mind, you're not playing in a cornfield where nothing is blocking you. So just a little weather PSA on that one. We'll see how it turns out today in Pittsburgh.
Love the chat box, man. Chat box. I love the chat box. And you're right. I've been riding high on the Steelers all year, and I do love Big Ben at home. That is a good point. And I do think the Steelers win, but the Bengals, Joe Burrow is a backdoor cover monster. And if you're getting 7.5, I think they cover.
He's got weapons at wide receiver. He's very athletic. He can avoid the pass rush. Right. I get that. And he's going to throw it. The pathway to victory for Cincinnati today is to throw between 40 to 50 times, which means that clock's going to stop and you're going to get some bad plays and some good plays. If they had Joe Mixon and said, we're really going to wrap down and protect our quarterback, then obviously we'll play through the under. I still think the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to score, but I also don't think that you're going to get a Cincinnati offense under like 10 points. So I think that over is going to be in play in this game. 6.5 across the board. 269, 270, Seattle. And Los Angeles rested and ready going up against Seattle, who is horrendous on defense, played as hard as they could last week in Buffalo, couldn't stop anything, and now going to get a dose of, the kid genius on the sideline, Sean McVay, just dialing up everything in the playbook that they could possibly get after that secondary and licking their chops. But here's where the boiling point comes down, because last week I'm on the show. I'm just tired of taking Russell Wilson in single-digit games and under one possession, which means under a field goal, which you have again this week because you think he can pull out the victory. He's going to be on turf again. He's going to make his plays. But when you stand it on its edge, the Rams defense is markedly better by Seattle. So can Russ run around and do all he does and make every play in the book? Yes. But Russ is going to have to put up 30-plus points against this Rams team to have a chance at beating this Rams team. But as I always boil it down to, what Jared, we don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. Jared Goff is so enigmatic to me where some days the offense can be rolling up and down the field and other days like Jared, just throw the football to the wide open guy. Stop taking these 17-yard sacks by rolling out of the pocket. I still think I'm going to trust in the numbers here and go with the Rams. You see the 2.5 across the board. They're rested. They're better on defense. They should put up points. I'm not worried about that because the only thing you can lean on now with Seattle, Kyle, is, well, If Russ goes nuclear for 400 yards, 3 touchdowns, and runs for 50, they have a chance. When you look at the Rams, you don't think that, do you? Like, well, Jared Goff has to go. No. The Rams just have to play a decent game to beat Seattle. Russ has to go nuclear to beat the Rams. Give me the Rams.
Yeah, and we've been talking about it like, oh, when we get these close numbers, we like Russell Wilson. I don't in this matchup. I saw the question, Robert Woods on DFS. Absolutely. No team in the league allows more fantasy points to opposing wide receivers than the Seattle Seahawks. Their 2 starting corners who are absolutely terrible are out. So now we're talking DJ Reed and God, I can't even remember the players' names. I had them in my brain and they're gone. The Seattle secondary is absolutely abysmal. And one reason I like Robert Woods quite a bit in this game, they also use him in those sort of jet sweep, tap pass type running games in the red zone. So I do like Robert Woods to get in the end zone today. They should absolutely dominate that secondary. Now, the question is, like you said, can we trust Jared Goff? And you really can't. Like one day, if Jared Goff wasn't a rich quarterback, he would be the guy selling you that used Subaru at the car lot. That would be Jared Goff, and you wouldn't know if you could trust him. That's Jared Goff. The Rams defense, so good. They have a fantastic defense, number 1 in the league against opposing wide receivers. It's just, I got to take the Rams here. The pass rush, the secondary, the linebackers, all better than Seattle. Seattle has nothing on defense. No Chris Carson, no Carlos Hyde. So now you're back to the DJ Dallas show. When you just look at these teams all around, that Seattle defense not good enough, in my opinion, to stop the Rams. If Jared Goff is remotely competent, the Rams win this game. I like the Rams. I like them by a touchdown as long as Jared Goff can have his act together. And I don't mind the total, too. I think the 55 is a pretty fair number. Russ is going to have to throw a lot. The Rams should score at will. Seattle can do nothing to stop them. So I like the Rams, and I like the over. The bet that I actually took was the Rams. I didn't bet the over on this one. I'm already rolling the dice with that 56 in that Bills-Cardinals game. I don't want to be that stressed out today. I want to enjoy my Sunday, but I think the over is the right play as well.
Yeah, I'm going to go against you on that over. And you know me, I'm an over guy. 55 sitting in this game. And I do look at Seattle. Yes, they can score. And I do look at, what Russ can do. I understand that. But the problem I have is the opposite side with Jared Goff. Like, sometimes I just figure, like Sean McVay has that little bit of a tendency that Kyle Shanahan does. Like, hey, Jared, things are running well. Let's not press the needle and push the gas pedal down. Let's throttle it back and, run the football on 3rd and 3. Let's not take the shot on 2nd down and 1. I just see that creeping in. And 55 points is no bargain in this game, specifically with Seattle and the way they can score. And can the Rams do whatever they want against Seattle? Sure. But I've seen it way too many times where you're struggling at the half and the Rams are sitting there with 10 down, 14-10 at the half to Seattle. Like, dude, what is going on with the Rams offense? They should be able to just get it off against the Seattle defense. Yeah. I lean towards the under in that game, but I do think the Rams are the right side because, again, just getting back to the simple point, one guy has to go off for them to have a chance at victory. The other guy doesn't. I'm going to lean that way each and every time. 271, 272, 425 today, San Francisco and New Orleans. What we thought would have been a titanic matchup in the offseason. Maybe a little bit of a whimper here as a 10-point line is out, but it's actually set back to 9s and 9.5s across the board. Over under at 49.5. What are we going to get out of San Francisco? They had nothing in their game against Green Bay, fought hard at the end, even though the game was over. But now getting some wide receivers back. Warren will be back. Ayuk's going to be back at wide receiver as well. Not a lot else that's going to be able to help you. And I love New Orleans defense. That front 4 gets after you, collapses the pocket. And the last time I saw Nick Mullins, where I watched him for a full game, was the Philadelphia Eagles game where he got a little bit of pressure and he was just throwing balls that he had no business throwing out there. I think this might be a runaway victory by the Saints. Everybody back and healthy for them. I think they flex their muscles, put it into the 30s. It's a 10-point line, 9.5. That's tough to cover. But if I'm looking at this game, I see like a 34-20 type duo here. Give me the New Orleans Saints to cover this double-digit line.
Yeah, I hate taking double-digit spreads, especially against my beloved 49ers. But, I mean, look, that offense looked bad against Green Bay's defense. Green Bay's defense is terrible. Now you bring in a Saints team who just stuffed Tom Brady, Antonio Brown, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Rob Gronkowski, Leonard Fournette, Ronald Jones. You don't think they can come in here and stomp on Nick Mullins and Jordan Reed and Jerick McKinnon and Brandon Ayuk and Ross Dwelly? Sorry to tell you, I love my 49ers. In New Orleans, a revenge game for New Orleans. It was an awesome game. I believe it was last year. I can never remember if things were 1 year or 2 years ago. I don't know what the hell's happening.
The one where they went up and down the field last year. Emmanuel Sanders had a big game, so it had to be last year.
Yeah, right? It was 46-44, I want to say. Garoppolo had a big game, and we won that game. The Saints are going to win this game. I think they're going to win this game easily. They should dominate here. Tough sledding for the 49ers. I like the Saints. I'm not sure if I think I like the under in it as well. I don't know what the 49ers are going to build. The Saints have a good defense. And
Great
especially
defense.
when they have the lead and they know that they're going to throw the football. Good luck. Nick Mullins. I like the Saints defense, by the way, at 3,000 on DraftKings, because I do think you see a defensive touchdown out of the Saints today. Nick Mullins throws up those ducks. Like we say, Phillip Rivers throws up ducks. Nick Mullins will legit just throw it straight to the other team. It's really frustrating to watch. Don't be surprised if you see CJ Beathard in the second half of this game. I like the Saints, and I like them easily.
I do think the Saints are going to win, but I'm telling you, it gives me, like, you can reveal the game plans like a week ago. They didn't have anybody, the 49ers, but Kyle Shanahan, instead of most coaches like, dude, we're going to get busted. We are getting busted. There's 6 minutes to go. Let's just get out of here. Presses the needle to get a couple touchdowns. And when I see that 49.5, can't you see it like 34 or 31 to 10 late, and Kyle Shanahan is running a hurry up offense and calling timeouts to score. It's maddening if you have the under, but when you have that type of coach that just is so angry at the world, he just wants to score points.
Yeah,
that holds some water with me. And again, when you're talking about a team that's not going to give up, what does Drew Brees go? Hey, Sean Payton, they're not giving up, even though we're up 21. Let me get one more. This team loves to do that stuff. So
yes, they do.
We'll see if it happens. That's why I lean towards the over, because I think Kyle Shanahan cares way more about his scoreboard than anything else in this game. And I think it gets over there. Let's talk last game before we get out of here with a couple picks. 273, 274 tonight. Baltimore Ravens and the New England Patriots. Rainy, windy conditions. We saw New England struggle for a good portion of that game with the New York Jets, who were absolutely horrendous. Now you're getting the big bullies of the bunch, but is it equalizing here where it's not optimum conditions to go up and down the field? Can Cam Newton keep the ball on the ground and keep it safe, or can Lamar Jackson finally get off? I'm not happy with Lamar Jackson in the passing game whatsoever. They got outplayed by the Indianapolis Colts, but ended up punching them in the mouth and beating them by 2 touchdowns. So when I look at that and say, New England's defense can't get a pass rush, Lamar Jackson can do whatever he wants out here. It's 6.5 now looking at Pinnacle. If you're getting a 6.5 at DraftKings, 6.5 at FanDuel, that might pique my interest, but I got to say, I didn't spend a lot of time on this game this week, figuring that line was going to be around 7 with bad weather and anything can happen. The one thing I'm not into doing is just taking New England, because I think they'll fight and play hard. They're so bad on defense. The only way I can look under a touchdown is Baltimore by a touchdown.
Hey, I actually don't mind the bad weather here. Baltimore is going to run up and down the field on this team. New England is the slowest team in the NFL by far. They have absolutely no shot in this game. Now, the last time I said that, I think I said it about the Broncos and the Patriots, and the Broncos won the damn game. So I don't want to get too far ahead of but this New England team is dreadful. Cam Newton's not going to be able to run on this team. Baltimore should roll. They should roll easily. I took Baltimore in my pick 6. I know we're going to get to that in a second. I just don't see any hope for New England. When you have to desperately come back and barely beat Joe bleeping Flacco on Monday Night Football, are you kidding me? Patriots are done. Stick a fork in them. Absolute embarrassment. Cam Newton is dreadful. He's going to turn the ball over tonight as well. I like Baltimore and Lamar Jackson. I think they run all over the New England Patriots and win this game by more than a touchdown. So give me the Baltimore Ravens.
I like it. All right, let's get out some plays here, get these people to their 1 o'clock kickoffs here. I'm going to go with 2 plays today, and one, I'm going to take a money line. It's the first game we started off with as soon as we got on the air at 12:10 Eastern time here. Washington and Detroit. I think the wrong team is favored, so I don't even want the points in this game. So I'm going to take the money line on the Washington/football team/Redskins. Forget the 2.5. Take them at the plus 125, plus 130. Then I'm also going to down here. I'm going to go against the grain. Everybody loves this team as an underdog, Cincinnati. Now that it's sitting below 7 points, I think the Steelers and that defense going to put some heat on. I think the Pittsburgh offense, even though it is some windy conditions, going to do whatever they want to that porous Cincinnati defense. I think the Steelers win that game by a touchdown or more. So I'm going to go money line on the Redskins, and I'm going to go take the Steelers minus the 6.5. Kyle, what do you got today?
Ooh, well, let's have a little fun. So I'm going to take the Bengals on the other side. I'm going to say the Bengals cover that game. We got to have one of those every week. I mean, we can't just be lackeys here. We got to have some fun here. I also think the Eagles cover. I like the Eagles quite a bit against the Giants today. And one more, obviously the under in Houston, Cleveland. Now it's getting a little dicey, but I still like the under there. And one more, I think Tampa Bay beats the brakes off of Carolina. I think they come in motivated. I like the Tampa Bay Buccaneers minus 6 as well. And my favorite prop play, again, Christian Kirk over 51.5 receiving yards in that game against Buffalo.
There we go. Got after week 10, a condensed show. Still got you out of here in time for kickoff. Thank you guys for hanging around for the first 10 minutes before we actually went on the air. We'll do it again next Sunday, 12 p.m. Eastern time, right here on the Closing Line, presented by SportsBookReview.com. I'm Donnie. He's Kyle. We're SportsBookReview.com. Thank you for tuning into the show today. We'll be back for our Monday night party tomorrow night, 7:45 live. Take care.